And welcome everyone to another Smart Money Circle episode. I'm Adam Sarhan. With me today is a very interesting gentleman. David Steele is the founder and CEO of One Wealth Advisors, which is an independent advisory firm with over $1 billion under management. And he's the founder of Flour and Water, which is a restaurant company with 9 restaurants and a consumer packaging business. David, thank you so much for taking the time and welcome to the Smart Money Circle.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to talking to you.
So, David, I always like to begin. Can you please tell us your story and how you got to where you are today?
Well, I grew up relatively poor in South Jersey, right outside of Philadelphia, and had to work my way through high school and college in restaurants, loved the business. Didn't have great modeling for the people that I worked for, even though I loved the industry, and didn't want to be poor anymore. And so when I got out of college, I went right to work on Wall Street, building a financial planning practice. Did that, nothing but that for 15, 16 years. And my brother was building that practice with me, and he and I built it up pretty well, and got to the point where I was like, my went to my brother and I said, I got to scratch an itch, and I'm going to open a restaurant, put a team together, open a restaurant. We opened one restaurant. It became so successful that it's now turned into a company, and it's run by a guy who I hired at 24, Chef Tom McNaughton, who's now become a CEO of a big company. So I get to be executive chairman. I get to play restaurateur part-time while I run a finance company.
Wow, I love that. Okay, great story, by the way. And let's talk about the businesses and ask you first about your money management business, what you do, and then your investment strategy, and then second, the restaurant business, please.
Yeah, of course. My financial planning company is called One Wealth Advisors. We've started, like I said, I started the practice forever ago, 1991. Just me at a little regional brokerage firm, sort of building the business the right way, one client at a time. And I was a little bit, it was in the age when most of the people in my industry more like financial services salespeople, like product salespeople, stockbrokers, if you will.
Yep.
And I saw relatively early on that the value proposition for that type of service was questionable. Um, but I did continuously see our clients really struggle with feeling disorganized and not having comfort that they were addressing all of the areas in their financial lives. And so I saw an opportunity to glom onto an area of financial services that was just sort of getting started called financial planning. And so I quickly converted my practice into a fee-based financial planning practice. And we didn't lead our sales pitch with, we can make you more money than the next person. We led our sales pitch with, we actually don't think anybody can make you more money. The markets are pretty hard to beat. And so rather than trying to beat the markets, we're going to become the organizing force in your life. And so we rarely lose a client. Therefore, every time we gained, 5, 7 new clients a year, little by little, the path of the tortoise, our business grew and grew and grew. And so it's now have 383 clients and close to $1.1 billion in assets under management. And we about 10 years ago left the brokerage firm space and formed our own company. And now it's an independent, we own it company with 13 employees. And yeah, so that's the business.
Congratulations on that growth. How about the restaurant business? I know you said that at one point you left and went there. Can you please tell us about that and the growth there?
Yeah, I mean, I never left the financial planning industry. I went to my brother and said, "Hey, I got to scratch this itch." He had worked in restaurants,
Okay,
also all
good.
through high school and college. Again, we didn't have a lot of money, so we both had to work full time. And he followed me into restaurants, and he could empathize with my itch I needed to scratch. And so I went and began to sort of go part time in restaurants. I put a team together, and I just wanted to open a restaurant. I wanted a humble little neighborhood Italian restaurant, but the guy I hired, he was 24, and neither of us knew that he was as talented as he was, I think. And so next thing we knew, we had lines around the block, James Beard nominations, and we became this gastronomic foodie destination in San Francisco. And I saw an opportunity for us to turn it into an actual company rather than just a mom and pop. sort of bootstrappy type of restaurant. And um, now it's a C Corp with 250 employees and a lot of restaurants and a consumer packaged goods business and 500 grocery stores, hopefully on our way to 85,000. We're going to try to scale one of our restaurants across the nation. So it's like a turned into a real company, but its original intent was much more humble.
Wow, what a remarkable story. So, my next question is going to be about risk. I'm going to ask you both on the finance side or the money side, and then also the business side. Most restaurants fail. Curious, how do you handle risk, and what are some mistakes you see people make with respect to risk management in either one of those businesses or both?
I've opened myself. I've opened as an owner, um, 11 restaurants, and nine have succeeded. So I've had two failures. And we have a consulting arm where we help. I kept getting asked, "How'd you do it? How'd you do it? How'd you do it?" And I would give people my time, and then eventually I said, if you want it to be a formal consulting gig, we can help you. And so we've consulted on six restaurants. Uh, all of them are successful. They all paid back their investors. They're all still in business today. One of which was 12 years ago, was the first consulting project we did, or 11 years ago. So I've been directly involved as an owner or as a consultant, and I think that's six plus 11, 17 businesses with 15 success stories. So my data argues against the data of the cliche of most restaurants fail, and I don't have that data, and I'm not sure anybody actually has that are, really reliable data, but I do think there's probably some fire where there's that smoke. And here's my hypothesis. The people opening restaurants often are chefs who have a uh, not healthy relationship with capital. It's abstract. Um, and they also don't understand, generally, they're not taught basic business principles in culinary school or when they're going up through their mentorship. Um, and yet, there are a lot of wealthy local people in these communities that like to dine out where they're running into these chefs. So it's a very sexy industry that maybe too easily attracts capital because it's a cool investment you can live and breathe in and experience rather than buying a stock or bond, which is not the most interactive investment you can make. It's pretty
Yes.
cold. And so my hypothesis is that most restaurants are started without business plans by entrepreneurs that don't have a healthy relationship with capital, who are too easily able to attract capital because of the sex appeal of the industry.
Wow. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you for that. So you're saying basically the chefs that are passionate, almost like artists, they understand the food side of the business, but they don't understand everything else, which is the numbers and helping it scale and making sure your cash flow and all that kind of fun stuff. And they just go into it saying, I can make a really good dish, but they don't understand anything else. And that's the ones that fail tend to miss the business side of it. Is that a good way of summarizing it?
I think so. I think in any good business, there's healthy tension between what you want and what you should have. Um, and I'm pretty sure that because of uh, the availability of capital to a very sexy industry, there's less tension pulling against the requirement of a return on investment every time a dollar is spent. I don't think that's how most restaurateurs are thinking.
Okay, got it. So that's very smart. Thank you for that. And how about from the money management side? How do you handle risk and what are some mistakes you see people make with respect to risk management from investing?
Well, we are, the way we position ourselves as a company, our ethos is we tell our clients, you create wealth, we preserve your wealth. So right there is mostly all you should need to know about how we think about risk. But it's also where we are in the life cycle of an investor. Like we're typically not working with people that are just starting their careers. We're working with people that have already developed wealth. They've hit a wealth plateau, and we're also, listen, we don't have any clients that are billionaires, and we probably never will, because somebody that becomes a billionaire started as a millionaire and then 100 millionaire. And when somebody got from a millionaire to 100 millionaire, the path along that way, if I'm involved, I'm going to say, yo, chill out. Like we just, with all the stuff going on with the tariffs and the market's going a bit haywire right now, we ran um, a an overall asset allocation for our company. We have 1.1 billion in assets under management, and we found we had 46% of our assets under management were in bonds and cash, and only 54% in assets that are more volatile, generally equities. The overwhelming majority of that is in index funds. So right there, you can see we're by our nature, because of who our clients are and our value proposition, we are oriented more towards capital preservation than we are towards any type of capital appreciation, primary orientation. And then with the index funds over active management, so to speak, we're suspicious that the majority of active managers actually earn their fee.
Got it.
And so, but the distinction is we're asset allocators and financial planners. We're not money managers. We deploy capital to money managers and we then vet them. It's those money managers we're skeptical of their fee, and therefore we usually default to index funds.
So that's a very good distinction. So you're looking at the plan. You're not actually. It makes sense. You're allocating the assets. You're not actually looking to buy and sell and buy this stock, buy that, sell that stock. You're looking at the planning. You're looking at the big picture. You're defensive coming in here. So you know your clients are already wealthy. You want to preserve that wealth, and that's your job is to keep them calm while others are.
Yeah. Yeah, I talked earlier about the evolution from stockbroker to financial planner, which I made within the very, very first phase of my career. And I saw the value proposition I was questioning it. Mm, Some advisors or stockbrokers who made that evolution couldn't get out of the mindset that they also had to be picking
Yep.
the best stock or the best mutual fund or whatever. They just couldn't get out of that addiction to selling based on their intelligence or their technical proficiency and how they can outperform anybody else they may be talking, any other the client may be talking to. With that is this itch they may need to scratch to be analysts and portfolio managers. Um, I can, any house designed by a general contractor is going to be an ugly house. You want an
Right.
architect and a designer, but there are
Right.
plenty of general contractors who design their own home.
Right.
Any house where the general contractor designed the home, also did the carpentry, also put up the drywall, also did the painting, also did the tile. Best case scenario is a house that won't blow down in the wind, but more likely it's a shaky house that's really freaking ugly and probably questionably built because they didn't acknowledge the competitive advantage and specialization of labor of the the subcontractors, the specialists. So we position ourselves and believe our role is as general contractor and architect, and then we delegate out the subcontracting of money management to index funds, separate account money managers in some instances, and in case of estate planning, estate attorneys and CPAs, and we create this holistic, overarching sort of virtual team that's working for the client. Think of it as a multi-family office for people that don't have $1 billion and could afford their own personal 15-person family office. We're a 13-person multi-family office for 380 clients that form a virtual team of specialists.
I love that. What a great way of explaining that. Let's talk about timeless lessons that you've learned along the way in life, business, anywhere you want to go, please.
Well, number one lesson, if you're not doing whatever you're doing in the service of others, you're almost certainly not going to be happy.
Love that. And it's so living is giving, right? I love that.
I think so. I mean, I just from personal experience, when I've been self-focused without an orientation towards other people, I found myself feeling lonely. And almost always when I'm in a situation where I feel like I'm adding value to people's lives, either through professional endeavors or just friendships or whatever it may be. I feel full.
Very powerful. Very, very powerful. Any other lessons you want to share? Should we go to mistakes? Because that's really powerful right there.
Well, the other big lesson for me was, I think it's probably related to the first one I said, but the other big lesson for me is, I believe all human motivation, once our base needs are met, is that people seek love and value. They just want to be loved and feel valued. And so when you look at any behavior, whether it be dysfunctional behavior or functional behavior, that um, is stands out. If you observe that behavior and then look at it through the lens of this person just wants to be loved and valued, um, I think it pretty quickly deconstructs almost everything that human beings do. And I'm not getting political, but if we look at the current president, and I think about all he wants to do is Donald Trump, all he wants is to be loved and valued. I don't know. It's kind of interesting to think about what you see, the persona and the behavior, and then look at it through that lens. It's like, oh man, what was his relationship with his father like?
I get that 100%. Yeah, it's
You
almost
know,
attention. It's binary where you give attention, you take attention. Most people are trying to take, 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 but when you can flip it on his head and give it, you get that sense of relief where it's like, oh, okay, I can get that love. And I love what you said. That's brilliant.
well, thank you. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
simple.
People, yeah, I love simplicity. People need that love and attention, and most of their actions are based on some way, shape, or form. You peel back the onion, they just want that love and attention. So that's
That's
really,
it.
really love it. All right, how
Yeah.
about the other side of the coin? Any timeless mistakes you've made or you've seen other people make, and how do you learn from them or avoid them?
Well, yeah, and I'm still making them. I mean, the big one for me is the trying to be perfect. Okay, so what do I mean? Um, I built a home. I spent 4 years building it, and I really like design. And I worked with a amazing architect, very talented, and designed this perfect home. Spent 4 years designing and building, moved in, and it stresses me out. I'm less happy than before I had the home. And I'm not quite sure what to do about that. I'm still working that out, psychoanalytic rich territory. But um, everybody that walks into the home thinks it's a modernist masterpiece, and they say this is the nicest home I've ever seen. All I see is flaw.
Mhm.
All I
I get,
see is
I get that.
imperfection. And the mistake was the mistake that we all go through life probably never being able to stop making, which is you have to enjoy the journey
Mhm.
rather than the end result. And if you're seeking perfection from an end result and not enjoying the journey, you're really setting yourself up for failures.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Somebody told me one time the journey is the destination. Just,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, and it's rife with problems and complexities
Mhm.
and things you need to deal with that you wish you didn't have to deal with. And we have a tendency, I think, to think, okay, once I get through this, then I'll be at peace or happy. And no, it's right now,
Yeah,
right now.
it is. Yep, 100%. Eternity is a series of present moments right now, right
Yeah,
now. We spoke a few
that's
weeks
it.
ago and we're going to get on the interview today. So when are we going to actually do the interview? Not next Wednesday at noon. It's like, oh, right now. When next
Yeah,
Wednesday comes, it's right now. So I love that. That's a really good way of
yeah.
shifting the focus from the past or the future to right now. So next question for you, leadership. CEO of chairman of executive, you've founded multiple businesses. What makes a great leader? And please speak to leadership at all. Anything that you want to go.
I'm not sure what makes a great leader, if there's anything absolute about that. I have, of course, my own philosophy in leadership, which is very self-serving, and I mean that in a positive way. Empower other people. I have a philosophy of if I can train somebody to do something 70% as well as I can do it, and I can quality control it to 95%, that's good enough because I've just saved myself a ton of time and I've empowered that person with skills along the way. That is, it's a bit of a never-ending farm system kind of process. So my form of leadership is to really try to have people develop their 10,000 hours, their mastery, and to tease out of them the within the constraints of the business we're running, because I can't have somebody working for my financial planning company that wants to be a chef, and I can't have somebody who wants to be a chef for my restaurant company who wants to work for the financial planning company. That those are very different skill sets, but within the constraints of the realities of the business, to be creative and flexible with the direction the business is going, to allow everybody in the team to both take care of the tasks that are necessary within the business, but also have the business morph into something over time that is informed by what that person is naturally good at and what they want to do. And so my philosophy with me being a leader and the other leaders of my organizations, I try to teach is really try to tease that out of people. Who are they authentically? What do they want to do? Empower them as much as they can with as many of their tasks as they can offload onto them. I know that's negatively connoted, but I mean it positively. Um, Allowing the person who did that delegating to then elevate themselves to be head up and to think about growing and expanding the business or making it more efficient. So
I
it's
love
a
that.
it's a constant cycle. It never ends.
Yeah, you get that good enough. I love that 70% of what you can do. And if that's GE, it's good enough, then great, let them go do it. And hopefully they get better and better with time. And then you can leverage your time because you're not doing that one task. You can do other tasks or oversee multiple people doing that. And that's a really good
That's
way of
right.
scaling. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
How about,
my brother, one more, sorry if I may.
please, yeah.
My brother's my founding partner of our financial planning company, and he's our chief operating officer. And um that took a lot of years to get. The reason he's our chief operating officer is because he literally can do every single thing in the business. He knows how every single thing's done in the business. There's an ugly side to that, which is he sometimes couldn't let go of all these little things in the business. But
Yeah.
he's actually a chief operating officer now because we've been able to get him to let go of all those tasks that he used to just he would do by himself. And now he's managing people to do all those tasks, um, which is has been it was a very contentious thing for he and I over years because in his mind, I think he would always be like, well, I'm too nervous to let this go because this is too important for me not to be in control of. And that's a bit of a disease of non-scalability. And so he's an example of somebody that I've nurtured into a delegating role rather than a doing role.
Yeah, that is really powerful. The delegating versus doing, because you can get caught doing forever and then you can't delegate and then you kind of burn out and you don't, hit a wall, all that fun stuff. So which we've been there before. So I understand from experience what you're talking about. Um, Question for you. What's Let's talk about adversity. To become successful, going through life and businesses, you have to deal with adversity. What are some obstacles you had to overcome? How do you handle adversity?
Well, let's talk about the markets for a moment. I mean, in my career, I think we're now in the fifth emergent feeling situation in the capital markets. The first was 1991 Desert Storm. We went into Iraq for the first time, and then was the dot-com bubble bursting, and then the credit crisis, and then COVID, and now this tariff thing. And before we get started, you asked me, how you doing with the crazy markets, and I was like, "Ah, this too shall pass. I've been through this before." That's not just lip service. Like I've just seen this so many times, but each time along the way, we're dealing with both our internal emotions because we as a team have our own wealth that we have deployed, and we're trying to grow our own wealth and get to the point where we can be financially secure. And we're dealing with clients' anxieties
Yeah.
and emotion. And our own wealth is not just triggered by our investments, but it's also triggered on the reality of our business, which is a fee-based business. That's we get paid based on assets under management. So each time along the way, the capital markets get get slammed. Our own personal assets are under pressure. Our client assets are under pressure. Therefore, we're having to deal with their emotions, and that's our job. It's fine. I'm not complaining, but it's the reality. And our business is under pressure because our revenue is correlated with the capital markets. Um, so, from a practical perspective, spend less than you make.
Yeah, seriously.
Don't go into debt you cannot easily service in almost any potential outcome.
Even worst case
Have
scenario,
your,
matter. Yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah,
right. Have your
yeah.
expectations be mild versus the reality of your potential. So if your reality exceeds your expectations, even in times of strife, you're not going to feel like a failure. You're going to feel even like a success because your expectations were kept they were contained, controlled.
Mhm. No, I love that. That's
That,
really,
that I mean,
really
that's how I deal with
good.
adversity. And, not to be too existential about it, we're all going to die,
Mhm.
full stop. And which means that we're all sort of faced with that ultimate demise. And along the way, which we can't control. And yet we don't stress out. Most of us don't obsess and stress out over death. So these things that impact us that we can't control, so long as you follow those rules I just mentioned a minute ago, you can look at things that happen to you as things you can't control, and you just, like a wave comes into the beach, it hits you in the head sometimes, and you hopefully don't drown, and the wave then goes out, and you're left in more mild water. That's usually the way I think about these things philosophically.
No, I love that. Okay, final question for you, David. This is, by the way, fantastic. What is the best piece of advice you'd like to give the audience or your 30-year-old self?
Um, well, I think that if you're a business person, which I would imagine many of the people listening to this podcast are, um, I would be super suspicious of anything that allows you to succeed in a short period of time, and um, especially an unproven business model and or an approach to whatever you're choosing to do. And I would be welcoming with open arms an approach that has decades of or more of success, where you can model behavior. And even though it takes a long time to succeed, it's a high probability of success because there's so much data to support that particular approach.
I love it. Well, beautiful. David, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing everything you shared with us today. Best of luck and success going forward, and hopefully we'll have you on again soon. This was really, really fantastic.
Thank you. I'd love to come back.